What's up, vape fam? Sorteal here, and welcome to the Vaporworks lab. Still vaping on the Dead Rabbit Max. I've got it sitting on top of the Keen from Times Vape and Stan Tenacious TX. Keen is kind of like Stan's step up from the Dreamer. It's a little bit bigger, comes with different beauty rings up top to kind of facilitate various size atomizers, anywhere from 24 all the way up to 30, I believe. But it's working great with the Dead Rabbit Max here. And the Dead Rabbit Max kind of had me thinking of other 28 millimeter atomizers that I actually really like. Now, 28 millimeters is pretty much as big as I'm going to go in an RDA, except for the Asgard. The Asgard 30 millimeter I do like, but it's about the only 30 millimeter or larger atomizer that I can really kind of enjoy on a consistent basis. But made me think about another one that I really like as well, and my opinion of it is slightly different than a lot of people's out there, so I thought I'd go ahead and do a review for it, but also do a review for the device that was kind of built to be a pair for it. What we're going to be talking about today is the Kong and the Prey, both from QP. The Kong is a 28 millimeter RDA. This is the master kit. It comes with various top caps. And then the Prey is the controversial mechanical mod from QP Designs. Now, I say controversial, but I don't know. I don't know if I thought it was so controversial overall. Let's take a look at the Prey first, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Now, it says flashlight because that was kind of how they sold it, I guess, to get around some of the shipping issues with various countries. They sold it as a flashlight, and it does actually work as a flashlight, but we could care less about the flashlight portion of it, right? Comes with two different beauty rings. This is the 25 millimeter beauty ring, and the one that I have on it is the 28 millimeter beauty ring. Now, the first batch of these beauty rings were made of metal. And that kind of what caused the whole issue. This one is a second batch, so this ring is Delrin, same with this 25 millimeter ring. But when they were metal, if you stuck an atomizer that was larger than 28 millimeters, it meant that the base of the atomizer made contact with this edge. Being metal, that completed the circuit, and it would cause an auto fire situation. Now, QP did say, hey, don't use anything bigger than a 28 millimeter with the 28 millimeter beauty ring. Don't use anything larger than 25 with the 25 millimeter beauty ring. They said that as soon as they released it. It wasn't like an afterthought of like, oh shit, we better say something about this. It was when it was released. So they fully knew about it. And I'm assuming they just thought, hey, if somebody's buying an advanced mechanical mod device, surely they can take some, a little flake on there or something. Surely they can take some advice on, hey, don't use these type of atomizers with this device because it's going to be dangerous. But people are idiots, so people did it anyway, and it auto fired, and reviewers, you know, some did not even review it until they updated it. And luckily they did. And even if you got a batch one, I believe they would send you the Delrin rings for free, if I remember right on that one. But if you got any of the second batch, the Delrin rings is what came with it. Problem with that, if you wanted the brass one, the Delrin ring on the brass looked like solidified dog piss. It just looked terrible because it's almost impossible to match up a color with Delrin with actual brass. Really, they probably would have done better had the beauty ring been Ultim for the brass version. But if you want the black or the gunmetal, it looks just great, just like this right here. But overall, I really dig this mechanical mod. It's side fire. Essentially what's going on there is there's a bar touching your contact point in there. Take your beauty ring off of here. Then you've got where your atomizer sits. Now this actually comes all the way out of here. Let me take the bottom off here. Kind of pop that sucker out of there. There's your tube down in there, fire bar. And these grooves up here are what's holding your contact portion in. Now with this contact portion, this right here is just Delrin, and it screws off of there. And then there's the rest of it where your atomizer sits. Got insulation right there. Mine's a little bent right there. I don't know. It came like that. I don't know if it was supposed to be like that, and that's where the fire bar was supposed to hit. But when you screw this back down, one issue with this that I don't like about this, but it's not really a huge issue, is everyone mentioned, you know, don't over tighten this. And that's really good advice because you'll mess up the threading overall. But when you stick this back in here, and then you screw an atomizer down on it, I'll show you when we get to the Kong, it'll screw all the way down and sit flush, but you'll have a little bit of battery rattle. But then if you just tighten the atomizer one more turn, it actually turns this and screws down tighter onto that little Delrin ring, and everything sits great and there's no battery rattle. But you are really tightening down on that Delrin. So be a little careful about unscrewing and screwing it back on, because you're just going to be over tightening it every time if you want to eliminate battery rattle. That's the biggest issue with this mechanical mod that I found. Everything else about it, I absolutely love. This is not a switch. Obviously, it's a side fire. This is just a tensioner for your battery. So, you know, your battery's sitting on it right there, and it just kind of makes the tension in there accurate so there's no battery rattle. As I just said, there's some unless you really tighten that atomizer down on there. See if we can get this off here. Kind of get it started and then just hand turn it really. But you want to make sure you're kind of holding on to this tensioner plate, because if you don't, the magnets that are in there, they are repulsion magnets, so they're reverse polarities. They will push against each other and one of these will go flying. There you go. Just take it off. You got one magnet here, one magnet in there, and that's all they're doing. There's also some venting down in there, but they're just pushing against each other, and that kind of gives you a spring-like action to this whole mechanism. Nope. All right, make sure we got the right poles going on there, and they're pushing away from each other, not attracting each other. That's really as simple as this whole mechanism gets. I'm going to make sure it's tight down. Still springy, so we've got the polarity of the magnets in there correctly. And that's pretty much the prey overall. It's a really good side fire mechanical mod. Do have that one issue with the Delrin and the way you have to screw it down and get it really tight on there so there's no battery rattle. But other than that, everything else about it is superb. One of my big issues with side fire mechanical mods is the fact that a lot of times the hits can be inconsistent. Basically what's going on there is when you hit a side fire mech, the bar or whatever the case is of how they're doing that mechanism just doesn't make adequate contact, or you have arcing marks in there, and after a while, you know, it's just not always making adequate contact unless you really press down on it, or you're just constantly cleaning those arc marks off of there. With this one, even if you did start to build up arc marks, you could kind of take that whole piece apart, pop that, the whole set, top portion where your atomizer sits, spin it, put it back down, and you're good to go again until you're ready to actually clean those arc marks off of there. But I haven't noticed any arcing damage whatsoever with this contact plate at all. But on a lot of other side fire mechs, that's kind of what happens. There's some that have just nailed it out of the park, and I've never had any issue with. The Swordfish from Rock Vape and the Atlas is another one that they just are excellent side fire mechanical mods with no real issues whatsoever. The Prey is another one of those. As far as its mechanism of side fire, it's just spot on every time. Once we get the Kong built up, we'll stick it on here and I'll show you just how well this thing performs. But for now, set it off to the side and we will take a look at the Kong RDA. It says Master Kit 28mm RDA QP Designs, limited edition. Then you get a authenticity card and you get 3 different top caps: copper, stainless steel, and black. This is not a matte black. It's almost like a gloss, kind of shiny black, but it goes really well with the Prey. And now these two are really built to be paired together. QP advertised them together. Any type of promotion on Instagram or anything like that always showed the Kong and the Prey together, so they're supposed to be used in unison, or you know, that's at least the way QP wanted it to, you know, kind of come across. So you get 3 top caps. Like I said, you get a bag that has all your spares, tools, grub screws, O-rings, squonk pin, the usual jazz. And then here is the deck, just kind of a giant pillar. And then you have individual slots for your coils. And kind of the thing that I like about this is if you really wanted to, you could overlap your coils in there. If you didn't feel like, you know, really precisely trimming your leg leads, you could just overlap them on top of each other, screw this down, and you're good to go. Or if your anal is all hell like I am, you'll cut your coil legs pretty precise and pretty short, and then just go ahead and clamp each one down. That's normally the way I do it. But what I really like about this, when you see this pillar, you're like, oh man, dripping juice down in this thing is gonna suck. But they fixed that issue too. So this big giant hole in the middle, your juice drips down into there, and then it's open on each side, so the juice just kind of runs out those sides directly to your wicks, and it works just phenomenal. It works outstanding. I really like the way they kind of solved the whole, you know, using a pillar type of deck design and dripping your juice. You've got squonk hole in the peak on both sides. I have not tried this with squonking yet, but I assume it would work just extremely well. Got your little notches here. That's where your top cap kind of lines up when you set it down, and it's actually lined up perfectly with this where it says QP design. That lines up perfectly with that notch, so it's kind of easy to figure out where you need your top cap to be to set it down on there correctly. Got serial number, Kong RDA 28mm QP design, gold plated 510 pin, peak insulator, protrudes out more than enough for a hybrid mechanical mod connection. I really like this deck overall, and normally I don't like kind of big pillar style decks, but with the Kong, I actually really like this. Let's stick this on the Gower 21. We will use the black top cap. Get our black top cap out of here. Set this off to the side. All right. Now these screws are already backed out some. I'm hoping it's enough. May not be on some of these. I'm gonna back a few of these out a little bit more. All right, I think that should be good. Now the coils I'm going to use are Coilology Alien V2s. These come out to 0.21 individually, so should come out to about 0.1, 0.11. Sometimes it comes out to 0.09, but any of those I'm fine with. I already got my legs cut on here. These are cut at 4mm. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Because I want them high because of where this airflow is. So if I've got it, it's going to be a little bit higher than that. Most of that airflow is going to hit the underside of that coil with a little bit on the side. So I think that might be about perfect. Actually, I'm going to lower them just a hair. See where we're at now. Yeah, that should be about perfect. Be about perfect. It's not going to be quite that. It'll be more about right there. Yeah, I think that should work good. Like I said, we'll get mostly undercoil airflow that way. Let's go ahead and pulse and pinch this bad boy. Turn this down to about 50. Right now it's coming out to 0.08, which is pretty normal for these. Make sure these are level. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and pulse and pinch these. Looks pretty good to me. Now, one thing that was said about this RDA as well was that couldn't really use 3mm ID coils. I did see several reviewers that did put 3mm ID coils in there and everything was fine. But there were a few that were like, there's no way you can do that. It's too close, blah, blah, blah. But that's all I've ever used with this RDA. So, well, it's not all I've ever used, but it's what I like in this. So you can use 3mm ID coils. You just want to make sure your leg leads are pretty short. And you want to make sure those coils are pretty close to this center pillar, just not touching it, obviously. We're going to use some Cloud 9 cotton. Got this thanks to Birdman sending it along to me. I've been rigorously testing this stuff out and I'm a huge fan of it, honestly. I'm definitely going to try and get my hands on more of this. At first, I thought it was just going to be similar to KGB cotton. And it sort of is, but I think Cloud 9 is a little better at heat resistance than KGB is. KGB, I would say, is a little more fluffy than Cloud 9. But overall, Cloud 9 just withstands heat so much better. Try and cool that down some. I think we're good. There's one. Don't worry, I'm gonna save the majority of that cotton. Actually, I have another RDA that the rest of this is going to go into. All right. You don't need a whole lot of wick with this, so I'm kind of gonna do about like that. Just kind of put your scissors to the base of the deck, base of the juice well wall here, and out just a hair, and you should be good to go. Brush this out some. Little under action from Mike Vapes, as always. See if I can do the mic vapes flip on this. Not too bad. Not 100% successful mic vapes flip, but pretty good if I do say so myself. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Pretty good overall. I'm going to use my butter cookie custard recipe. My C in my cookie's gone. It's butter cookie custard. All right. All right, I think that should be good. I'm going to clean it up just a little bit with these wicks here. Now that they're saturated, just to make sure my top cap doesn't catch any of it. All right, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and stick this top cap on here. Like I said, to kind of figure out how to put your top cap back on here, where that notch is, just line it up with the QP designs. It should just go on there perfect, just like that. Kong on the other side. All right, let's swap over. We'll vape on this a little bit here on the Gower, then stick this on the Prey. All right, drip a little more in here. Now, actually, I kind of want to show that. Hang on just a second. Little hole down in there. You just drip juice down into it. It just immediately sends it to your wicks. There's no real, doesn't pool up, doesn't just blit all over the place. It just goes directly to the juice well. So I really like that about this design overall. That was just an ingenious move for doing kind of a pillar style deck and still having, you know, a really good way of getting the juice where it needed to go. All right, let's have a vape. I'm going to turn this up. Came out to 0.1 exactly. Put it at 80 watts. See about the airflow. One thing I will say about this airflow, it's kind of hard to line up. Let me take this off. I'll kind of show you guys real quick what I'm talking about here. So the holes for this are really small. And then same obviously on the inside, they don't really open up. So when you're turning your airflow up and down, it's hard to see where they're at. But for the most part, wide open is really where you want this thing. So I always just kind of take it off and then line it up really well. And then you can see sort of where it's supposed to be. Sort of, but it's just really hard to see it through all of that just because the holes are so small. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, that's good. Flavor off this thing is just excellent for a 28 millimeter. It's not outstanding or phenomenal, but it's really good. So it's not as good as say something like the Nightmare 28 millimeter or the Pandemic Plague Edition, that 28 millimeter. But I think it's better flavor than say the Dead Rabbit Max or the Purge X 28.5 millimeter RDA. crank his wattage up. Let's do 100 watt. Oh yeah, that's good. All right, I think we're good to go ahead and stick this on the prey. Turn this off. Then I can kind of show you what I'm talking about with tightening down your atomizer on the prey. Actually going to go ahead and swap over here. We'll take a look at this. So you tighten your atomizer down on here. Seems like right there is tight down. Pretty good. But it will turn all the way around again and tighten even more. If you don't do that, you'll have battery rattle. The battery will rattle just a little bit inside there. And now it's where it should be. But yeah, so once you have that Delrin inside your contact portion there, your contact kind of top cap there, and then you put your beauty ring on, you screw down your atomizer, it will seem like it's on there pretty good and tight, just sitting flush, everything looks good. You put a battery in it, and then you're like, why in the hell is this battery rattling in here so bad? Just tighten it down even more. It's basically where you've tightened that down and it's come loose from the Delrin that screws onto the contact top cap portion in there. That's kind of come loose just screwing your atomizer on there. So you got to crank down on it one more time. It'll basically turn one full rotation again, and then you're good to go. All right, let's stick a battery in here. Tighten this down real good. Oh yeah, all right. Let's go back up top. Drip a little more liquid in this. I still love watching that hole just blip right to where your wicks are. All right, let's take a tube. No battery rattle. I was a little worried. Actually, yeah, there is. What's going on there? Uh-oh. Let me find out what's up with that real quick. We're going to use a raw wrapped Monocell P42A, plus that black one that I was using, that top plate, a little teeny bit dented. It may be just enough. Yeah, no battery rattle. So yeah, I think it was more my battery, but now that denting down in the plate is like so slight, just so very slight. I guess I'm probably gonna have to recycle that battery just because it is dented, period, but it's not dented bad. That's why, you know, once you tighten it down, that one final full rotation, it will be tight down. You'll get no battery rattle. The only reason I was still getting battery rattle was because that plate was just slightly dented. So kind of the tension on your battery is very slight. So if your battery has any kind of dents or anything like that, it's probably gonna rattle. So you wanna make sure, you know, using a peak battery, one that is in peak performance, peak condition, Olympic level battery. All right, on to the Kong. Now the Kong got a lot of, not necessarily slack, but it was one thing that people said was a con for them. So if I'm going to go over what I like and dislike about this, we'll start off with what I'm talking about, which is the airflow. A lot of people said they wanted more airflow out of this RDA. And to me, wide open, it's definitely restrictive. Even wide open, it's a little restrictive, but what you get out of it, you get plenty of air overall, but it just feels a little bit restrictive. But the vapor production is there. but it is kind of a tight draw due to that. But that's what I like about it. You get plenty of air, but that draw is pretty tight. It's almost the perfect draw for a large style atomizer, in my own personal opinion and with my own personal taste. Now, if you like a lot of air, you like an airy RDA, the Kong is probably not going to be for you unless you can get a hold of a competition top cap for the Kong. They did make those. There were less rows of airflow. It was 2 instead of 3, but the holes were a lot bigger, so you got a lot more airflow. The other thing that you can do to kind of up the airflow a little bit is use 2.5 millimeter ID coils, but still get them pretty close to that post there in the middle. That way they're slightly away from your airflow there on the side, and you get a little more room for all that air to move. One of the reasons it is such a tight draw is because the air is immediately hitting your coils and then having to shoot upwards. Plus you have that giant post in the middle, so kind of the air pressure in there is higher because the air has nowhere to go except under your coils and on the sides of them, and then directly up. And it's not really going to go to the middle and up, it's just kind of going to go to the sides and up. So it's just very restrictive to the airflow already, but I think it's one of the things that gives it a little bit better flavor than a lot of other 28 millimeter atomizers out there. Now again, not as good as say the Nightmare or Pandemic, but very good overall. It's not blow me away flavor, but it is very, very good. And I do personally really like the draw off this. Now, when I'm vaping on the Squai RDA, the way that I set the airflow on that one comes out to be a lot like this. It's almost like the best of both worlds between a direct to lung hit and kind of that cigarette draw tightness to it. You get the best of both worlds in that regard, even more so on the Kong than what I can dial in on the Squai. Yeah, I dig the performance off of the Kong overall. It works great on whatever mechanical mods you want to throw it on. I think when Bogan did his review, he used a stainless steel top cap and stuck it on the Vert 2 with stainless steel beauty rings. It looked phenomenal, and I'm sure it performed just outstanding. But for me, the sweet spot for it is on the Prey. I love this mechanical mod. It's a little finicky for sure. You do have to tighten that atomizer down pretty well to get rid of any type of battery rattle, and as we found out, you want to make sure that the battery is in top condition. If there's any type of denting to say your positive plate or down at the negative portion, it's going to rattle. So it really needs to be in peak condition. Performance off the Prey is just spectacular. It is one of the most consistent side fire mechanical mods I've ever used. The Swordfish from Rock Vape and the Atlas outpace it overall, but it's still up there with some of the best side fire mechanical mods on the market. And the Kong is just an outstanding 28 millimeter RDA, but you have to like a tighter draw. You do get plenty of vapor, but it is a tighter kind of draw. It's really like a restrictive direct lung draw with direct lung results, if that makes any kind of sense. You get the vapor production of a direct lung type of hit, but with kind of the feel of more of a restrictive direct lung. So what is the controversy overall with the Prey, and why do I think it really wasn't that big of a controversy? Well, as I said before, it came with metal beauty rings when it was first released. So the 25 millimeter beauty ring was metal, 28 millimeter beauty ring was metal, and QP said, hey, don't use over 25 with the 25 beauty ring, don't use over a 28 millimeter atomizer with the 28 millimeter beauty ring. But people are just not going to pay any attention to that and stick a 30 millimeter atomizer on here, and that causes it to auto fire. It just completes the circuit and it just sits there and auto fires, which can cause thermal runaway. Always a huge thing to avoid, very bad. And so, you know, reviewers really pointed it out to QP, and luckily QP did the right thing. They went out of their way and said, okay, future batches, Delrin Beauty Rings from here on out. If you own the original, you could get in contact with QP and they would send you Delrin Beauty Rings for the prey you already bought, which is very, very cool. And kudos to QP for doing that. Why did I think it wasn't really that big of a deal? Because QP told you don't do that. This is already an advanced vaping device, so you should know Ohm's law, battery safety, and atomizer safety. You should already know all that stuff. And if the manufacturer is saying, hey, don't do this, you shouldn't do it. But people are just going to be dumb and do whatever the hell they want. And once it becomes dangerous, you know, the company really needs to step in and say, all right, it looks like we have to stupid proof our mechanical mod here. You know, anybody that had an auto fire situation, I'm not necessarily calling you dumb, but, you know, if you read, hey, this atomizer is too big for this mechanical mod, don't try it. Luckily, I didn't hear of anyone actually getting injured or anything like that due to this. And just kudos again to QP for just rectifying the situation entirely and making sure that no one got injured in the future. That's what you're supposed to do. But a lot of companies would not have done that. They would not have cared. They would have said, hey, we told you don't fucking do that. Don't do it. But QP said, no, let's just go ahead, fix this issue, and, you know, just go ahead and make it right now. And I'm glad that they did, because the Prey is just a phenomenal mechanical mod. Like I said, it works great with the Kong. The whole setup of it just looks sleek, sexy, ready to go. I love the side fire mechanism with this. It works flawlessly. I've had almost no issues with it. It's not been any kind of inconsistencies between hits. It's just the same great hit time after time after time. All right, guys, that's it. Definitely check out the Kong and the Prey. You can still get a hold of these. No shopping links, nothing like that. I'm not going to tell you where. Just do a Google search and you will find these. You will actually find both of these on sale in a lot of places. Just hunt yourself. If you're interested in both of these devices, you will find them, and they are well worth the price of admission as it is right now. Vape on, and I will catch you guys in the next one.